Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Marco Dre Show, everybody. It is Monday, August 11th. Congrats on starting your week off the right way by tuning in today's show to get all the groundbreaking news across our country, across the world, where the facts are facts and the hard truths always thrive. Please be sure to like, follow, and share the show with others to get this information out. I always appreciate you when you do that. And I don't want to waste any time, so let's get ready for the best hour that radio has to offer. Uncensored and ready to go. I want to revisit an article that I had actually from Friday, and it was an article about Howard Stern, of all people, right? You think, why the hell would he be talking about Howard Stern on the Marco Dre Show? Well, Howard Stern, as many of you know, is a shock jock for, like ever. I mean, started his career, I believe, in 1977. And while I disagree with Howard Stern pretty much on everything politically that he stands for, I have to say, it's very odd to me. I don't know if it's odd, but it's odd that someone could be on the top for so long. I mean, here's a guy who got syndicated in, I believe, 1982. And here he is over, 43 years later, he's still syndicated nationally. Drew 20 million fans at one point in his career. I mean, to come down from 20 million fans to 125,000 as of late, on SiriusXM, by the way. It's really odd to me that someone could go from being so popular, so well known. I mean, you knew who he was in the late 1970s, for God's sakes, I think. People started to know who he was. And he goes over to D.C., I believe from Detroit, if I'm not mistaken, and just becomes the number one person. He's so good at what he does. And again, I'm saying, if you like Howard Stern. But he was pulling people from all these other stations and all these other shows are just dying out. Nobody's listening. And then he gets to New York and he becomes this phenomenon and they syndicate his show. He's number one in New York. He's number one in the market. And you see that show grow. And, if you like comedy, he was a big jokester, obviously. Obviously, some of his topics were, I think, a bit out there as far as whom he brought on and the topics of which he discussed and the language in which he used, but that was his shtick. That was his shtick. We all have shticks, right? My show is about the news, and I tell you the news as I see it, and I give it to you how I see it. There's no two ways about it. That's who I am. That's what my show is. I want to bring you the most groundbreaking news I can find out there for you. So you are the most well-informed person out there when you're talking to people. That's what my show's about. Howard Stern show is about a whole plethora of things, but it was to entertain you. But to go from, 20 million to 125,000, it's over. It's over. By the way, they spent a lot of money on this show. Stern has reportedly earned over $1 billion during his tenure with SiriusXM alone. His current 5-year deal, signed in 2020, that's the last time he signed it, pays him up to $120 million annually. Not bad, Howard, not bad. But as time went on, he started to go more to the left, and that's where his real downfall was. He'd have people out there like Jesse Ventura, interview people. He'd interview a lot of people. He'd interview Donald Trump at one point. And all of a sudden, he just goes way to the left, and the show is no longer funny, because that's what people don't understand. When you go to the left, and you make all these proclamations, whatever they may be, a guy can be a girl can be a guy. That's not funny. It's not humorous. It's not entertaining. It's no longer funny. Right? The left has no humor. So while he appeals to a certain group of people, I don't know who these 125,000 people are, but I doubt they would like the lesbian dial a date anymore. Do you think of that? I don't think so. Yeah, what else? The whack pack that he has on? I don't think they like that. Making fun of people with special needs. People with disabilities. I don't think they would go for that. Do you? But they most definitely would go for the whole vaccine shtick. Right? This is one of the last things that he had to... I mean, he's still on the show. One of the last things he said is, I'm not for stupidity, you know. I ran out Friday morning. I was over at CVS. Thank you, CVS. I went over there 9 a.m. and I caught myself a new vaccine for COVID. Effing science. This effing country is so great. And then he goes on to say, I'm woke. Mother effer. And I love it. I want to be awake. I want to read legitimate news sources. Here's how woke I am. I believe the election was not rigged, Stern said in 2020. I am woke. I think it's a comeback. No, it's not. And then, of course, in 2024, he endorses Kamala Harris, who was the worst candidate on the planet to ever run for office, I have to say, aside from Joe Biden and probably Obama. She was a mess. And again, people are going to see that and go, okay, this woman's a mess. She makes absolutely no sense when she speaks. There's no substance to her. There's no character to her. She just says the latest thing that's, trendy on the left. And here's Howard Stern endorsing her. If that means anything, I don't know what that means coming from a shock jock. But, interviews Joe Biden, bashes Donald Trump, champions the vaccine, says if you don't get the vaccine, the hell with your freedoms and all that. And people tune out to that. People don't like it. So I don't know if that's who he was all along or what's going on with Howard Stern today, but it's an odd thing. It's a very odd thing. I've always known Howard Stern. I mean, he's been on the radio since I've been alive. I was born after he was nationally syndicated, so I've always known who Howard Stern was. Right? Just like you knew who Rush Limbaugh was. I always knew who Rush Limbaugh was. I mean, these are giant names in the history of radio broadcasting. But unlike Rush, Howard Stern has fallen from grace, I think, a bit much. And it seems like it's over. They're not going to renew his contract. How do you do that? Do you go as long as you can until there's no more and say that's it? I mean, Rush was still number one in his last days when he was on the radio. And for good reason. He stuck to his guns. He always said what he believed in. Now, whether you believe what he said or not is up to you. I mean, I'm sure there's things I may disagree with him on in certain stances and positions. But overall, Rush was a very entertaining person that brought you the news as he saw it. And that's why he was number one for so long. That's why he was the best in conservative talk radio. And I don't think you're ever going to see a Rush Limbaugh ever again. You can't. He's the one that made it that way. There's Rush Limbaugh, there's Michael Savage, and then you have everyone else vying for, who's next in line. People like that don't come along very often. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. So these people that revolutionize the airwaves. And that's who Howard Stern was. That's the way Rush Limbaugh was. And again, that's why these giants, it's odd that they're gone now. Rush obviously passed away in 2021. And now Howard Stern is off the air because his ratings suck. I mean, it's odd times, folks. But I think this is a big testament to what's happening on the left. You're seeing people like the schmuck Stephen Colbert. He's gone. Good riddance. He'll be off very, very soon. Howard Stern, it looks like at the end of this year, is not renewed his contract, and it's over. It's done. He is done. And the chopping block of the other people you see, you can look at people like Dim Acosta, people like that. What's Cuomo's brother's name? Chris Cuomo? Yeah, Fredo Cuomo. Yeah, that's him. Yeah. He got kicked off the air. You're seeing this on the left nonstop. Because their shows are off. And now The View is on the chopping block. That's the one that's next. They said they're going on hiatus. That's another one that's going to be gone very, very soon. They have no ratings. Because these shows are not genuine. They don't give you real news. They give you their own distorted version of what they think is the truth. And in the end, it never is. I mean, are you really going to get your news from the ladies on The View? My God. kind of world are we living in? There's nothing there. And that's why it's such a perfect show for Kamala Harris to go on. There's absolutely no substance there. There's nothing to listen to. It's just noise. You didn't get that with Rush Limbaugh. Right? You never got that with him. You got substance with him. You got entertained by him. You got information from him. That is the point of being on the airwaves if you're in the news. You say how it is. You're entertaining. You do it in a way that people can understand. They can maybe chuckle every once in a while. But you're giving them the news. And that's why a lot of you tune into this show, because you're getting the news. Uncensored and ready to go as always. So Howard Stern, I guess as my career begins, yours seems to be fizzling out. But, I did like the Whack Pack, though, Howard. I got to tell you. Whack Pack was a good thing. That was funny. That was good. That'll always be out there. All right, moving on. Let's get on to our most important pressing topics now. Now that we know that Howard Stern is no more. This is in BBC. And as many of you know, that the United States and Russia now have agreed to hold a meeting between President Donald Trump and President Putin this Friday to discuss ways to end the war in Ukraine. Now, Trump seems to be on this, peace talk proposals that he seems to be with. And he announced the meeting last Friday, the same day that he self-imposed deadline for Russia to agree to a ceasefire or else more U.S. sanctions. Which, again, I told you before, I don't think is going to work. Folks, this war against Donald Trump and BRICS, putting tariffs on India, putting tariffs on Brazil, on China, on Iran, it's not working. And it's not going to work. I told you before, their economy is twice the size of ours. It's not going to work. It's simply not going to work. And I have to say, while I want him to go in search of peace, I want this war to end. We all want this war to end. We were promised this war was going to end by him. A day in office. He said, this war will be over by day one when I get in office. And here we are, almost 8 months later. We're still in it. So Trump has been pushing hard, without much success, to end the war in Ukraine. I don't agree with that at all. He just sent arms over not too long ago. So how can he say he's for peace and pushing for peace when he's sending more arms for Ukraine to fire missiles at Russians? Doesn't work that way. Then now all of a sudden we're selling arms to NATO to give to Russia. This is the exact reason why Putin went into Ukraine. He wants a buffer zone between him and NATO. And of course, as I've said to you many times, the Minsk agreements, which was violated, of course. We could talk about the Maidan Revolution. We could talk about NATO expanding east. I mean, all these things that shouldn't be happening. And again, it's putting Russia in a position where they have to either do something or they're going to have NATO all on their western border. And Putin knows better than that. So, people ask me, do you think anything good's going to happen? Do you think everything's going to be hunky-dory? Are we going to walk away with a peace agreement, a ceasefire, an end of the war, negotiations? I don't think so. And I say that just based on how he's speaking. He's like, yeah, we'll meet. I'll know within 2 minutes if he's serious or not. How are you going to know in 2 minutes if somebody's serious or not? Now, before you even took office, Putin says he'd be willing to come and speak with you and listen to your ideas for peace. That should have been a green light to sit down day one with him and talk about how this war could end. Now, a White House official has said that Trump is willing to hold a trilateral meeting, which would also include Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. But we know that Zelensky is the de facto president. We know that he's not for real. We know that he has no real say in anything. And we know that he's already outlined certain resolutions that are going to continue this war. Who wants war reparations? He wants all the land back that Russia has taken over and obtained. I mean, it's just not going to happen, folks. It's simply not going to happen. So do I think he'll be there? I doubt Zelensky will be there. I doubt it. Sounds like Trump is going to report back to Zelensky, to NATO, to discuss whatever is going to be discussed this Friday. But, you notice that they never tell you what they want to do? And again, I know there's negotiations going on in the background. We don't have to know every single piece of detail, but why can't Donald Trump just tell us, this is how I'm going to reach peace with President Putin. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to say to President Putin when I meet with him. And I'm going to put it on the table for him to accept or decline. But I'm going to work my damnedest to get us a peace negotiation for Ukraine. Zelensky went on to say, we will not reward Russia for what it has perpetrated. Okay. Any decisions against us, any decisions without Ukraine, are also decisions against peace, says the guy who's extended this war much longer than it ought to be. Speaking to Fox News on Sunday, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance suggests that Zelensky could join Putin and Trump for talks at a later date. That's probably the smartest idea. I mean, Trump could propose that. I don't think Putin's going to think he's for real, though. I really don't think he's going to believe anything Zelensky says. I don't even know if he'll believe anything that Donald Trump has said. I really don't. And, the thing that's odd about this, the thing that's really odd about this is that the negotiator for Putin right now is this guy, Kirill Dmitriev. Okay, he is Russian, obviously, but he's been a young global leader with the World Economic Forum. I don't like that at all, because we know what the World Economic Forum is, everyone. We know it's communism. And he sits on several investment funds and certain boards. He's been Putin's special envoy on international economic and investment cooperation. So the guy is definitely a swamp fixture. He's got to be in Russia. I mean, could he have a more conflicted person to negotiate with? I don't think so. Began his career at Goldman Sachs. Now I'm reading from Paul Craig Roberts here. This is the exact person you don't want to agree with and sit down with. But this is where we find ourselves. Zelensky's position is that all territory must be returned to Ukraine. It's not going to happen. If you sit down and tell Putin that, the war is going to continue on. Just understand this, folks. This is the reality of the situation. And look at this. I mean, come on, folks. Come on. We're talking about hegemony now. We're talking about what caused this war. We know for a fact that Donald Trump had the CIA training Ukrainians how to, go to war and fight with Russia. I mean, this is all ridiculous, folks. And then Trump saying, this is not my war. Well, it kind of is your war, Donald. Come on. Call it how it was. But the other part, and we talked about this on Friday, I discussed this with you, how it was obviously a positive that both the presidents of Azerbaijan and, of course, President Pashinyan of Armenia sat down for this peace negotiation. Again, I'm a guy for peace. I like when I hear about peace negotiation. That's a good thing. But as you read more into it, and I think Putin might bring this up at this meeting, the South Caucasus, where these nations are, right, just south of Russia, there's this corridor called the Zangezur corridor, all right? And it runs along Iran's northern borders with Armenia and Azerbaijan, right? Okay. So it's like a means of travel. It's like a Silk Road. That's how they get goods from Russia to Iran and, of course, to the east. And now the United States is saying, Washington's declaring that, we're going to obtain this region for 99 years. And I say to myself, okay, that's going to be at the heart of China's new Silk Road. Obviously, it's a major trading point for BRICS. And, of course, Russia's influence in some of these former Soviet provinces, which Armenia certainly was once, at one time. And it also is an encirclement of Iran. Now we have the United States to the north of Iran. Yeah. We have now, so now we have United States in these two regions, right? They're going to be controlling this entire corridor. And you don't think Russia's going to have anything to say about that? You don't think there might be any provocations based on all this? There has to be, folks. There has to be. You're controlling an entire, they wanted to call it the Trump corridor or something like that. But here we go again. Now we're in the Southern Caucasus, right? And nobody seems to understand. This is a power grab. This is a power move. It's to limit Russia's influence. It's to limit Iran. And of course, now, if we're controlling this territory, right, if we're maintaining peace, right, as what has been said, Iran's going to have something to say about this as well. Do you think they're going to want the United States to be stationed just north of them? For those of you that don't know, Iran borders both of these nations and their southern borders. So they're right in this region. So that puts Iran and, of course, Russia to the very close north of being in danger, again, of the United States presence, of Washington. So are they going to downplay the loss of this corridor? Is that what Russia's going to do? Or are they just going to forget about it? Only time will tell. I mean, if I'm Putin, I'm going to have something to say about this. I mean, it's no one's talking about this. The United States is moving into this region so conveniently. And by the way, no talk of peace in the Artsakh region of Azerbaijan. Now, where this region is, it's Azerbaijan's land, but there's many ethnic Armenians that live in this area. Armenia was once, at one point, much bigger than what it is today. And the harassment and the turning off electricity and preventing people from getting food, I mean, it was taking place, I think, a couple years ago now. But any talks of that, keeping that region safe? I mean, what are we talking about here? When we talk about peace? And how come Turkey's not involved in this peace negotiation? They also hate Armenia, just like Azerbaijan does. So is this just Pashinyan dishing away more Armenian land? I mean, come on, folks. Come on. What are we doing here? Why do we need to keep provoking Iran, China, and Russia? Is this just to attack BRICS? That's what I keep asking myself. I do want to know if this is going to be mentioned this week on Friday in Alaska. I'm very interested to know if this gets brought up about the United States' position now between these countries. So it'll be interesting to see this. Yeah, it runs around their northern borders. That's right where Russia is. That's right where Russia and Georgia are. And of course, you box out Russia from, again, these corridors to head south, you're isolating Iran from them. So it's just the perfect recipe to have more trouble later on. That's the way I see it. And that's why I'm telling it to you. So don't be shocked if you hear about this in the near future. So there we go there, folks. So expect that to happen. Again, I do hope Trump pushes for peace between Ukraine and Russia. I want this conflict to end. You want this to end. There's no reason for it not to end. It's ridiculous that this war of attrition continues on. And more Ukrainian and Russian lives die as a result of it. Nobody should want this. We should want this to end as quickly as possible. So I will keep my eye on what's happening in Armenia, of course. I do like the idea of peace. And one other thing I think that might happen. This is just, again, I've heard it from a couple people today. Very smart people. Is the United States now going to recruit Azerbaijan and Armenia to become NATO nations? Again, would Russia like that? I don't think so. I don't think so. But it definitely puts them in a position to do so. And again, will it spark more of a conflict in the region? I think it absolutely would. And again, if Armenia and Azerbaijan go, then you just have Georgia left, and then you're right on Russia's southern border in the Caucasus region. You're right there. You're right there. Putin's not going to go for it, folks. I guarantee, as sure as I'm sitting here, Putin is not going to go for it. And that's all she wrote on that one. So fingers crossed, at least for peace, that this conflict ends with this war in Ukraine. Zelensky is irrelevant. I don't know why anyone's even consulting him. He's certainly not realistic about ending this conflict and pushing for peace. Newsweek had a good article. Since we're talking about what's happening in the Caucasus region, now let's talk about what's happening in the Middle East. I want to know what you think about this, though. Al Jazeera confirmed that the outlet's Arabic correspondent, Anas al-Sharif, has been killed by an Israeli strike in Gaza City. This took place yesterday. Now, the entire situation has been stated that this guy is a Hamas member, but they killed a whole crew of people working for Al Jazeera. So reporting from Gaza has grown increasingly dangerous, is how it continues to tell us. With Reporters Without Borders saying that the Israeli army has killed more than 200 journalists since the beginning of the war on October 7th, 2023. Last year marked a record number of journalists killed worldwide, with the Committee to Protect Journalists identifying that nearly 70% of those killed were from Israeli fire. Many journalists have simply left Gaza because of safety and health concerns. I mean, this area is just wrought with danger. That's what it is. And that's the whole purpose of it. You have no real journalists going in the region and telling you what's happening. They're letting Fox News in. I like Fox in many regards, but I mean, do I think they're giving us the correct information there? I question it. I mean, I question everything, but they're letting one news organization constantly come in there. And they're not letting anyone else go in. And anyone else that goes in, many times they're getting killed. This is not good, folks. This is not good at all. So with the access in this area limited, as well as with food and supplies, and reporters working obviously in these difficult conditions to provide some type of insight when they interview people, when they go to tents and whatnot in these refugee areas. And again, all these people are sequestered into this one little area in northern Gaza now because they've been displaced from their homes. Now, al-Sharif, who was often pictured in a press vest, like that mattered, was also a well-known Al Jazeera correspondent covering northern Gaza, where much of the fighting has taken place over the last 22 months. So you got to get rid of this guy. There it is. It's over. Get rid of him. You stop the threat of getting this information out. The only information they want on is what they're telling us. You know, I'm looking at these pictures here. I mean, the whole place is in ruins, folks. It's absolutely tragic, and it's awful. It's awful. And we as Americans, we push for freedom of speech. You know, you don't have to always agree with what I tell you. I always tell you to do your own research. If you don't believe me, go look it up. Come to your own conclusions. But I'm giving you what I'm getting from people in the intel world. I'm getting you information from people that go on the ground many times. My sources are very much vetted. And that's why I think I'm giving you the most up-to-date, the most honest reporting. Does that mean I'm perfect? Of course not. But this is the reality of the situation. That Israel has routinely accused Palestinian journalists of being members of Hamas, and therefore it's right to kill them. I mean, this is just absurdity. Yeah, look at this. The Israeli military has killed more than 200 reporters and media workers since this bombardment began. It's unbelievable. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, the world we're living in right now. And of course, no one in the West says anything. Nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to notice. It's all whatever. It just never seems to end, folks. Just never seems to end this conflict. The Washington Post, though, speaking of conflicts, the FBI has begun dispatching agents in overnight shifts to help local law enforcement prevent carjackings and violent crime in Washington. Now, this comes after President Donald Trump made a press conference just today talking about how, obviously, the crime rates in the capital of D.C., the District of Criminals, the District of Columbia. Yes, folks, yes. Trump on Sunday compared forthcoming action against D.C. crime to his administration's aggressive crackdown against illegal immigration at the southern border, saying that the plans now to immediately clear out the city's homeless population and take swift action against crime. I mean, it's out of control what's happening in D.C. Now, many of you, and again, I question this as well, is it right for the federal government to come in and to federalize a local police department? Now, on all other occasions, I would say, no, it's not right to do that. Because you can't put in the military unless, of course, you have the governor of that state to, in certain situations, like rebellion or insurrection, to then bring in the National Guard, to then bring in the Marines. Situations like that. That's not what we're seeing right now. But what we're seeing is this uptick in crime because of soft leftist laws being implemented. And again, when you're not charging people for crimes, if you're just giving people a slap on the wrist, we saw this in California. Because, again, if you committed crimes where you were stealing $950 worth of goods a day, it was a slap on the wrist and you were out back in the streets by lunch. Off to do it again. And then, doesn't matter. You're arrested, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. Doesn't matter. There was no law holding you to deter you from doing that. And this is exactly what we're seeing in D.C. There's no one going after these youths, as they call them. They're just children who are criminals. That's who they are. And again, nobody seems to do anything about it. And now Judge Neen came out saying that, her hands are tied. Because she wants to try these people. They come out, whether it be vandalism or assault or whatever it is. And because the city council makes these lax laws, they're back out on the streets right away. Nothing happens. They fear nothing. There's no civil society in some parts of D.C., and we're seeing that right now. But the administration has now authorized up to 120 agents, largely from the FBI's Washington field office, to work these overnight shifts for at least 1 week alongside D.C. police and other federal and law enforcement officers in the nation's capital. I think this is going to be a positive step. I think this will bring down crime. I hope so. This is our nation's capital, folks. And it's one of the most violent capitals in the entire world. I mean, it takes the cake from everybody. I think the next one is Colombia's Bogota. It's that out of control. But again, this is our nation's capital. And you have crime constantly. Day in and day out. Murders. The highest murder rate of any nation's capital in the world is in the United States. Does that make any sense to you? You can look at who's running the cities, folks, and you can tell exactly why these things are happening. Are these blue cities, especially in these blue states, are lawless. They don't hold people accountable. They let illegal aliens run free. They don't care. And you even get people, in many regards, from the community to come out and actually back the criminals, if that makes any sense to you. Take a listen to this.
The president has been trying to provoke violence here, right here, in the black communities and in the brown communities, having ICE kidnap our neighbors, having the black community be harassed and profiled and want a response. We say, hell no, we won't go.
Okay, so there you go. We have illiterate people now championing crime in their own city. This is their own city. Do they not give a damn that their city is unlivable? I mean, my God. Donald Trump is harassing you specifically? You idiot? You're on camera right now. I mean, this is just ridiculous. How can anyone be against this? By the way, we're going to put more people on the streets to make sure there's less crime in our nation's capital, which, again, I told you before, the federal government has a right to do, and of course, Congress can act on this again. And they should have acted on this long ago, so it shouldn't be any type of shock to anybody. But now, of course, it's just, black and brown people they're harassing. Nobody else. Nobody else. They say you can't make this stuff up. I think you can make some of this stuff up. You never would think that craziness like this exists. I mean, the fact that this comes out of people's mouths in and of itself is absolutely shocking to me in many regards. I mean, this is what we get. If you're trying to bring law and order to a major city, it's because you're going after black and brown people and harassing them and putting them in danger. You can't make this stuff. And it doesn't get any better from Muriel Bowser, who defends the crime rate.
I've said before, and I'll repeat, that I believe that the president's view of D.C. is shaped by his COVID-era experience during his first term.
Would that be when people in D.C. were trying to rush the White House, and they had to get the president, turn all the lights off in the White House, and put him in the basement? That time? Miss Bauer? Miss Mayor? That experience? What is complete lawlessness in D.C.? Over George Floyd, who OD'd on drugs? They lied and said it was the cops? Oh, yeah. Yeah, Derek Chauvin had his knee on the side of his neck while he's talking. Everyone's saying he's strangling him. These people don't know basic biology, folks. I don't know. I mean, do they not realize that there's, two sets of arteries on both sides of the neck? And obviously, if you're speaking, you're breathing, which he was. I mean, come on, folks. The truth is the truth. If you're talking, you're not being strangled. The man had more drugs in him. I mean, like 3 times the amount, I think, of heroin. He had all these drugs in him. He consumed drugs right as he was being stopped by the police for passing around a phony $20 bill. They blame it on the cop. The cop killed him. No, the cop didn't kill him. But the cop had to go down. Otherwise, they would still cause $2 billion worth of damage across the nation. Yeah, Donald Trump is fearing his COVID days. Is that right, Mayor?
And it is true that those were more challenging times related to some issues. It is also true that we experienced a crime spike post-COVID. This year, crime isn't just down from 2023. It's also down from 2019, before the pandemic, and we're at a 30-year violent crime low.
So wait, let me get this straight. We're at a 30-year violent crime low, and yet we still dwarf the next nation's murder rate in their nation's capital. This is remarkable to me. I mean, this is crazy. That means a couple of years ago it was even higher, which is even more absurd. And nobody thought to do anything? The great Joe Biden couldn't figure out what's... Well, don't get Joe too worked up. He was in bed by 9 every night if he was even up that late. Donald Trump is right to do this. He ought to do this. It's important that he does this. He needs to bring law and order to this city. My only fear, I will tell you this, is that someone also said, would you do the same thing in New York City? And he seemed like he was tempted to do this. Now, again, unless he gets Kathy Hochul, Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker to sign off on this for some reason. Again, there has to be a reason for it. You have to have complete disarray in the streets. It's got to be like an insurrection or a rebellion in the streets. Then he can come in and do this. D.C. is a different ballgame. He's well within his right to do what he's doing right now. But now, this is what I fear most, that we're now going to federalize these police departments in major cities. I do not want that. That's not how the Constitution is set up. That's not right to do that. It is up to the local officials, whom are voted in, to create laws and follow those laws and prosecute people based on those laws. When you have these soft on crime mayors and city councils and DAs, this is why you're seeing what you're seeing in these cities. Complete lawlessness. Do I think it's going to go further? I hope not. I pray it doesn't go further than this. But yes, DC's a mess. New York City, LA, San Francisco, Chicago, go through the list. Memphis, Baltimore. I mean, it gets bad in these blue cities, folks. But look who your leadership is. And look who the leadership's been with. For how many decades now? I mean, hell, the last time LA had a Republican mayor was in 2001. San Francisco, 1964. I think Chicago was like the 1920s, if I'm not mistaken, maybe the 30s. DC's never had a Republican mayor. New York City had a good run. We had Giuliani, then we had Bloomberg come in. It was a much safer city, and that all got upended by the great Bill de Blasio. Yeah. Old Wilhelm Voren. That's right. That's his real name. Yeah. You vote blue, that's what you get, folks. You get more crime. Shouldn't be a shock at this point. It's got to be the people that want to make changes in these cities as well. It's got to come down to the people. You know what might be the problem, though? Why we see this chaos and we see no change ever. They keep voting for the same schmucks day in and day out. It's just this article in the Wall Street Journal that I have here. It says that Trump weighs reclassifying marijuana as a less dangerous drug. Yeah. Yeah, I think I found the root cause of this, folks. Too many dopers in these cities are high off their ass, high as a kite, and they can't make any rational decision-making skills. Right? That. Maybe this is part of it. We have a doped-out, lower IQ population. They have no idea what the hell's going on. Yeah, that makes more sense to me. But now they want to actually reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug. Let me tell you something. Marijuana is a dangerous drug. And as people go, well, Jerry, I smoked marijuana before. I'm totally fine. Folks, we'll talk about the harmful effects of marijuana in just a minute. But at this $1 million plate fundraiser in his New Jersey golf club earlier this month, Trump told attendees that he was interested in change. The people who declined to be named said, such a shift, which the Biden administration started pursuing but didn't enact before leaving office, what a shock, would make it much easier to buy and sell marijuana and make the multi-billion-dollar industry much more profitable. So getting more profit from your own demise, isn't that good? You pay for your own chaos. Now, folks, I mean, come on. Are we serious about this? These guests at the Trump fundraiser included Kim Rivers, the chief executive of one of the largest marijuana companies, who encouraged Trump to pursue the change and expand medical marijuana research, according to people present at the event. So he's getting this pressure from the weed lobby, right? Yeah. And they want to push to be scheduled as a Schedule 3 drug, which wouldn't make it entirely legal yet, but would, again, ease these restrictions. Would also be allowed for tax breaks for some marijuana companies. That's what they're looking for, by the way. And additional medical research. First of all, I gotta get... all right, I can't take much more of this. This is so stupid. First of all, marijuana is a gateway drug. What does that mean? It means people that are going out there, again, who maybe they're easily addicted to certain things like getting high and what have you. First of all, it's a gateway drug. It leads to every other hard drug there is. Nobody just goes out there and starts shooting heroin in their arms, or taking ecstasy, or crack cocaine, or fentanyl, for God's sakes. It doesn't start like that. It starts, benign. Oh, a little cigarette. Oh, let me go on to the weed now. Now, it's important to understand that there is 4 times the amount of tar in a what do they call them? I can't even think of it now. It's not a bowl. What is it? Joint. There you go. My marijuana vernacular is down right now, folks. I apologize. There's 4 times the amount of tar in a marijuana joint that there's in a regular cigarette. 4 times the amount of tar. Now, heavy marijuana consumption obviously would then lead to risk of clogged arteries, right? That tar gets inside. It stays inside the lungs in many places, possibly causing things like heart failure. And among other things, it also impacts male fertility. Now, we know that male fertility is at an all-time low thanks to the COVID shots that were given out, but also this uptick of people smoking marijuana nonstop. Another big problem with it. So smoking weed, likewise, can then lead to things like bronchitis. You get other respiratory illnesses. The idea that this is something that's positive, that's good, that's something medical is stupid. Now, if you want to extract CBD oil from the marijuana plant and use that for some type of health benefit. No one's just sitting there smoking their ass off and going, geez, I'm going to help myself out right now. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And by the way, the cannabis plants hyperaccumulate with metal toxicity. Oh, that can't be good, having heavy metal enter your bloodstream like a vaccine today. No, that can't be good. That can be. By the way, anytime you ingest anything hot, in this case, you are lighting something that is on fire and inhaling that into your lungs, that weakens your immune system, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't matter what it is. You can put your head in an oven and start inhaling, and it'll have the same effect. That's why they tell you, by the way, if you're eating foods, you should have just over 50% of your daily intake should come from something that is cold or room temperature, not something that's heated up. And that's the reason why. Because your body is taking something that's so much more hot, the way your body can really handle it sometimes, your body views it as an attack, if that makes sense. So this constant use of, again, inhaling the smoke, giving you more tar, obviously vasodilation, or vasoconstriction, not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. And then there's also the THC effect that happens. Obviously, the whole getting high part, in and of itself, not a good thing. Obviously, we have DUIs, the tetrahydrocannabinol, right? The part that gets you high. It affects the mood, your perception of things, your other cognitive functions. It limits you. And just like drinking too much alcohol and you're on a bender, you're drunk, this is the same effect, except you're smoking. Now, some people argue, well, smoking is much better for you. There's less, adverse risks involved. Same kind of concept. Especially when you drink and smoke at the same time. Makes things even worse. You're really weakening your immune system then. And again, I'm not arguing you should go drink or smoke one or the other. I think you should avoid both. They're both very bad for you. But the idea that they're pushing this into people, and again, this happened under George Soros. So if George Soros, back in 2008, throwing, $1 million into Arizona, $1 million into California, if George Soros is pushing for something, the marijuana industry, it's probably something that's bad for you. And by the way, if you're smoking marijuana from California, a lot of times it's on this soil in the state of California that has had volcanic activity on it. Arsenic. Yes, ingesting arsenic, folks, is not a good thing. Just thought I'd share all that with you. So when anyone tells you, it's a benign drug, there's lots of problems with it. Things like anxiety afterwards, paranoia. Obviously, it may trigger schizophrenia, psychosis, depression. I mean, come on. This is the best we've got? We've got to do better for our kids. And, of course, adults should do the same as well. Be better role models for that. But it's not benign. It's not something that should just be taken lightly. This is a big problem. And, again, trying to make it easier access, especially for youth, is a much bigger problem. That's the reason why they call it dope, folks. Because you act like a dope when you're on it. Yeah, there it is. That's our government, though, for you. The reclassifying drugs. Fantastic. The Epoch Times has a good article on the HHS canceling $500 million in mRNA technology. And, of course, this vaccine development for these contracts, I think this is a very positive thing. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced on August 5th that 22 mRNA vaccine contracts are being canceled and redirected because the data shows that these vaccines fail to produce any type of means to protect effectively against upper respiratory infections like COVID and the flu. Well, no kidding. Dr. Fauci told us this, remember? Fauci went out and told us that, you got 95% prevention of getting COVID. And then it was, it's actually 90. Then it was 70. We got 60. Then it was to stop the severeness of the symptoms, which, again, is not a vaccine. And let me add this so everyone listening understands this. Anytime you are taking one of these COVID vaccines with this mRNA technology, and they're trying to put it in everything now. They're trying to put it in your flu vaccines. They're trying to make all these vaccines mRNA. And by the way, they're also trying to put this in your livestock, the food in which you eat. What happens? This is why it's so dangerous. Your body becomes a host for whatever antigen they are trying to get rid of. So that's why you had all these COVID spike proteins being produced in your body. That's why many people felt like crap after taking this, because your body's actually a host site and producing this. So these mRNA development activities are spearheaded by the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, BARDA, which is managed by Global Health Investment Corporation. The Department of Health and Human Services contracts for the 22 projects are worth nearly $500 million of your taxpayer money. So you're paying for your own demise, in a sense. So the decision follows a comprehensive review of the mRNA-related investments initiated during the COVID-19 public health emergency, which I call the pandemic, of course, because that's what it was. Did everyone want to take an experimental gene editing shot? Kennedy said that we reviewed the science, listened to the experts, and acted. We're shifting the funding towards safer, broader vaccine platforms that remain effective even as viruses mutate. So I'm very glad about this. Again, you could go look at the data. You could look at the VAERS research. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't believe me, it's out there. All you do is open your eyes. You're seeing, just cases of cases. I'll give you an example. This is an autopsy of 325 confirmed cases taking, which vaccine was this? I believe this was the Pfizer, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see here. It doesn't tell me. I don't know why. I think this is the Pfizer vaccine, though. I think this is Pfizer. Okay, so here's what they have to say. They had 325 autopsies published in 44 different studies, finding that 73.9% of these deaths were adjudicated by independent physicians and being directly caused or significantly linked to the COVID-19 vaccine. So 325 people. So of these 325 deaths, the leading cause of deaths included sudden cardiac death, that was 35%, pulmonary embolism, 12.5%, myocardial infarction, 12%, that's a heart attack, a vaccine-induced immune thrombotic, I can't say this other word, 7.9%, myocarditis, that's the inflammation of your heart muscle, causing it not to work, multi-system inflammatory syndrome, 4.6%, cerebral hemorrhaging, 3.8%. Not bad. Not bad. All these things attributed to taking a shot that's supposed to be safe and effective. Is that Fauci tried to tell you, which of course was a complete lie. This is all in the VAERS research, by the way, folks. And by the way, there's over 2.7 million now VAERS cases. These are the people that have been injured or died from taking these COVID vaccines. You can't make this stuff up, folks. You just can't make this nonsense up. So absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Yep, and by the way, we have a whistleblower now coming in California. This is in Slay News. Nurse blows whistle on cover-up of 5,000% surge in fetal deaths caused by COVID vaccine. So they were telling the mothers it's safe to take this, don't worry about it. The mothers that are pregnant are taking this vaccination. And we have a 5,000% surge in fetal deaths. This is murder. This is what it is. There's no other way to say it. Wasn't safe. It wasn't tested. Absolutely appalling. Absolutely sickening. It makes me sick to my stomach just thinking about it. These women were lied to. Everyone was lied to. I was the one at the time shouting to no avail that this is toxic. These are poisonous shots. Don't take these. I hate when I'm right sometimes. But of course it turned out to be true. These are not safe and effective. These are not helpful. They don't prevent illness. Stay away from them. If you haven't taken any, don't take any. If you've taken some, don't take any more. And pray to God that you stay healthy. And try to do everything you can to detox this technology out of your bodies. Last article I want to discuss is a New York Post article. It says here that Cuomo supporters push dual resident Hamptonites to move voter registration in New York City and defeat Mamdani. Boy, are they desperate. They are desperate to beat this guy. Why can't they do what I just said and simply have everyone else drop out of the race? So it's Mamdani versus one other candidate. That way they're not splitting the ticket. And that way you can beat this guy. He's only got about 40 or so percent of the vote. Maybe like 43% of the Dem vote. Why not get behind one candidate that's a little bit more palatable to everybody and beat this guy? That way we don't have to see him anymore. So now what they're trying to do is get New Yorkers with second homes in the Hamptons are being urged to save the Big Apple from Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani by switching their vote registration from Long Island to the 5 boroughs. I mean, this is so stupid. I don't know if you can do this at the last minute. Apparently, though, you can. I believe is what it says here. So it says, I've been trying to get this message out since the primary. It's what the chairman of Fix the City, a pro-Cuomo political action committee, who has spoken to dozens of people, it's a very high profile, who claim they're definitely changing the registration. You didn't win elections because you did the right thing, but by doing 100 things right, 1,000 things right, Cohen insisted. So I guess what the push is now, we've got to flood New York City with more people that aren't going to vote for this schmuck. Yeah, the Commie Mamdani, who wants to do everything he can to fight Donald Trump. I'm sure that's going to go over well. But here's what you got to do. I'm going to say it again. You've got to get people out there that are likely voters who will vote for a candidate that's not Mamdani, who's not a hardcore communist, that's never produced anything in his entire life, who's wealthy beyond all means, espousing communism. Now, does that mean that some of these candidates are saving grace? Of course not, but at least they're not hardcore communists. I mean, in that situation, you've got a big problem here. Because now you have a guy who wants to make city-run grocery stores. You got a guy that wants to defund the police. You got a guy that wants to stop charter schools. That's what I read to you the other day. And a whole plethora of other awful, awful things. Get rid of healthcare insurance. Just so ridiculous. This is all communist. It's all out of the communist playbook. He's going to freeze rent. Really? How are people going to pay for these apartments? I already told you that 20% of all brick and mortars across the nation, add New York City to that list. When people leave because of this guy, you're going to have all these empty buildings that no one's going to pay for, and the banks are going to go bust as a result of this. But it looks like each of these other 3 candidates, that'd be Sliwa, Adams, Cuomo, are going to stand and try to beat this guy. And what's going to happen? He's going to take the bulk of the votes, and he's going to probably run away with this. That's what's probably going to be the end result. Unless people mature up, they say, okay, I'm not that popular, I'm going to get out of this race, I'm going to endorse the other candidate. And that's what 2 people need to get up and do. So I don't care if it's Cuomo. I don't know if Sliwa can do it, even though he's getting a higher percentage of the vote. We got to get someone over the 50% mark. And again, I don't know if you're going to get that from Sliwa, just to be honest with you. I think he got almost 30% of the vote last time when he ran against Eric Adams. So I don't know. I don't think he can win, though. It's just my honest opinion. I know he's a great guy, but it's New York City. They're not going to vote for a Republican, folks. So get a moderate Democrat out there that's not going to burn the city down to ashes, that might even save the city, and that way you can save New York City. That would be the most better option, I would have to say, right? Folks, thanks for being here with me today. I appreciate you so much. Please share the show with others. Have a great rest of your day, and remember, stay busy, stay productive, be well. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless.